In a development that speaks volumes about the delicate dance between reinvention and residual entitlement, the Duchess of Sussex has once again turned heads by slipping back into designer gowns first worn during photo shoots 3 years ago, all while the couple continues to navigate the blurred lines of royal protocol long after stepping away from official duties. I'm glad you've joined me as we begin to unpick the layers of this development. Picture the scene in mid-October last year, the crisp autumn air of Manhattan carrying the low hum of exclusivity as Meghan and Harry slipped out of that members-only Soho House venue after what insiders described as a quietly romantic date night at the private club Chez Margot, perhaps even crossing paths with the likes of Ed Sheeran in the softly lit corridors where deals are whispered and egos are stroked in equal measure. There she was, captured in the inevitable flash of waiting cameras, wearing a sleek black and white tweed strapless midi dress from Chanel, its structured elegance catching the light just so, the very same piece she had first debuted in a 2022 profile for The Cut magazine during those heady early days of their post-royal rebrand. One can almost imagine the inner monologue playing out behind that composed smile, a quiet calculation perhaps, the thought that in a year already shadowed by whispers of tightening belts and stalled ventures, why splash out on something new when this timeless number still flattered and carried the subtle cachet of high fashion without the fresh price tag north of £8,000? The surrounding atmosphere crackled with that peculiar New York blend of glamour and scrutiny, paparazzi lenses trained not just on the couple's coordinated dark looks, but on the subtle message it sent. Harry at her side projecting supportive poise, while privately, one suspects, feeling the familiar tug of unease at yet another layer of public dissection that might ripple back across the Atlantic to palace corridors, where protocol still matters deeply. A well-placed source close to those circles later confided how such choices, however stylish, carried an undercurrent of irritation, the sense that even in private moments the couple seemed unable to fully relinquish the royal adjacency that once dictated every hemline and accessory, now repurposed for personal evenings that somehow still made global headlines. And the long-term consequences stretch far beyond one evening's headlines, quietly reinforcing a narrative of calculated thriftiness that sits uneasily alongside the Montecito mansion and the lingering aura of multi-million-dollar deals, planting seeds of skepticism among those who watch from afar and wonder whether this is sustainable reinvention or something closer to selective memory when it comes to independence. Yet the story deepened just weeks later in November when promotional material for the holiday edition of her Netflix lifestyle series surfaced, showing Meghan in an emerald green one-shoulder Galvan gown, the Ushuaia design flowing with that expensive drape as she lit candles on a festive table, evoking warmth and domestic sophistication for her audience. This was no new acquisition either. Eagle-eyed observers immediately recognized it as the exact $1,795 piece she had worn for a high-profile variety cover shoot back in 2022, the same gown that, according to multiple accounts from those present, had simply disappeared from the set once the cameras stopped rolling. Behind the scenes, the atmosphere in the Sussex camp must have shifted from quiet satisfaction at repurposing a favorite to something more defensive as the tabloids lit up with the details. A source behind closed doors describing how the dress had been spirited away without the usual courtesies of asking or even a polite purchase at sample discount, while another longtime acquaintance of the fashion world recalled the quiet shock among stylists who had assumed professional boundaries would be observed. Meghan herself, one imagines in those private moments, might have felt a surge of justification, perhaps rehearsing the rationale that these were simply keepsakes from a chapter when the world still viewed her through a royal lens, items to be archived as any working royal might, even though she and Harry had long since traded formal duties for something more fluid. A source within the inner circle later painted the palace reaction as one of weary exasperation, not outright fury, but a pointed irritation at the blurring of lines, the way the Duchess still invoked that Sussex title in promotional contexts, while treating wardrobe as personal property in a manner that working members of the family bound by stricter no-freebie conventions would never contemplate. The pressure cooker of public opinion only intensified, with the couple's carefully curated image of polished self-sufficiency now tinged by accusations of entitlement that echoed older stories of missing accessories from even earlier shoots, creating an undercurrent of cynicism that no polished denial could fully dispel. And dispel it they tried, with a spokesperson issuing a firm rebuttal that the insinuation of anything taken without full knowledge or contractual agreement was categorically false and highly defamatory, insisting every kept item had been handled in total transparency. Yet the words landed amid a swirl of skepticism, the sort that lingers in drawing rooms and online forums where women of a certain age, attuned to the quiet economics of maintaining appearances, exchange knowing glances. One cannot ignore how this episode, unfolding against the broader canvas of 2025's reported financial strains and the couple's ambitious but uneven Hollywood push, carries deeper emotional weight for all involved. Harry, ever the supportive partner, may well have found himself caught between loyalty and the dawning realization that each such story chips away at the dignity they both crave, while Meghan perhaps wrestled with the internal conflict of wanting to project effortless elegance without the constant outlay that true independence demands. The surrounding atmosphere, thick with the residue of earlier staff departures and brand setbacks, only amplified the sense of a make-or-break year slipping further from control, every recycled gown now a symbol not just of style, but of unresolved tensions between the life they left and the one they are building. Long-term, the consequences feel almost inevitable, a gradual erosion of goodwill among the very demographic that once offered sympathy, replaced instead by a hardened view of calculated optics that trades on royal echoes while sidestepping the discipline that once came with the crown. It is this pattern, repeated across date nights and promotional trailers alike, that invites the deeper reflection we so often share here, the realization that protocol, once shed, leaves behind expectations that are harder to escape than any formal rule book. A well-meaning staff member from those earlier circles has been known to murmur that such choices, however minor they seem in isolation, accumulate like quiet debts to public perception, fostering an image of thrift that borders on parsimony when juxtaposed with the lavish backdrop of their California existence. One senses the inner monologue for the Duchess in these moments, a blend of defiance and perhaps a touch of wistfulness for the days when choices were simpler and scrutiny more structured, while Harry navigates his own pressures, the homesick pull toward tradition clashing with the forward momentum she drives. The atmosphere in media circles remains one of fascinated detachment, the sort of confidential chatter that spreads through trusted channels, underscoring how money, image, and the lingering drama of royal adjacency continue to intertwine in ways that keep the story perpetually alive. Ultimately, these reworn gowns do more than recycle fabric. They recycle questions about authenticity, entitlement, and the true cost of freedom, leaving observers like ourselves to ponder whether the couple's path forward will smooth these creases or only deepen them in the years ahead.